Hey guys, it's Madison and welcome to this little vlog which has two primary functions. Number one, I want to report about the Korean language exchange that have just begun this past week. And number two, to have kind of a little day in my life study vlog for today. So first of all, like I said, last week I began a new Korean language exchange. One of my primary goals, I would say, for this year is to just do a lot more Korean speaking in general. I really feel like my Korean skills are almost atrophying because of the fact that I teach and work in English and don't yet have a thriving social community here in Songdo, and so I just have not been speaking much in Korean, and thus my skills have begun to kind of almost get worse over time versus better. And so after I got back from the States almost exactly 2 weeks ago, I was kind of debating how I could get involved more socially to have those opportunities to speak more in Korean and also just to build my social connections here in Korea, when unexpectedly this opportunity basically just fell into my lap. So I received an email from one of the other faculty at my university saying that she really wants to practice her spoken English. She teaches her courses in English and interacts with students in English as well, so her English skills are excellent already, but she feels like outside of her area and field, she's not quite as confident and just wants to practice and have someone give her feedback on if she says anything that's unnatural, or just trying to take kind of her conversational, just casual English up to the next level, even though it's already pretty good. And she kind of gave two options. First of all, she could pay me as just a tutor, or if I wanted to practice any Korean, then we could set up sort of a language exchange situation. And so, of course, since I was just in the process of trying to think about how I could find more speaking opportunities, I was like, I'll do the language exchange option, and so I went ahead and emailed her back and we arranged a time to meet. Now, despite the fact that we both work at the same university and have probably attended many events at the university at the same time in the same place, because we are in totally different departments, I've never actually met this person in person. And so I was a little bit nervous about meeting her and how it would go, just because if we're going to be meeting regularly and having these conversations multiple times a week, it's really important that you can kind of have a good matching energy with the person and that you kind of get along well in general, and also that you can naturally find things to talk about so you're not kind of searching for things to discuss. I think probably all of us have had that experience before, where you meet somebody and you just either don't match well, or you're kind of struggling to find topics to discuss, or you're just checking your watch the whole time waiting for the time to be over. So I was a little bit nervous about that, but thankfully we met for the first time on Tuesday afternoon and we matched pretty well. Our conversation was really smooth. We just kept talking and talking, and it was really easy to find things to discuss. She also is an introvert and kind of homebody like me, and she's also very insecure about her language abilities, even though her English is very, very good. So after that first meeting, I was just really relieved that this would actually be able to work and sustainable for at least this semester. So we decided on the arrangement to meet twice a week, once in English and once in Korean, and each time would be around 45 to 50 minutes. And that we would meet in her office after both of our classes were done for the day at around 3:30-ish. So Thursday came around and that was the real test, because Tuesday was just English and her English is pretty good already, so there wasn't much for me to like cognitively have to do. But once Thursday came around, that definitely flipped, and my goodness, my Korean was so rusty. I don't think she was like disappointed, because honestly, meeting anybody in Korea who's like fluent in Korean, who's a foreigner, I think is just naturally like, oh, they're pretty good at Korean. But definitely I was having to search for a lot of words, even like very basic words. She would try to like help me think of the word, but I couldn't even like describe well what the word was that I was trying to like search for in my brain. So definitely I am very rusty in Korean, for sure. But again, I think that honestly doing this kind of language exchange and just actually purposefully speaking for long periods of time regularly, once a week, will be very good for moving from that rusty searching for words kind of stage to being able to speak a lot more fluidly in conversation. I was also kind of surprised at how quickly our conversation like got deep on several topics. Like, for example, often when people first start speaking to me in Korean, they'll ask like, oh, why did you learn Korean? How did you start learning Korean? Is Korean difficult? And kind of those kinds of questions. But like our conversation went like very quickly to like reporting parents for child abuse and how like the standards for child abuse have like changed over the past decades. So I was like, whoa, I'm not mentally ready to discuss this in Korean, or hardly even English even. And we also discussed like the difference in American and Korean like mindsets towards being independent. Like, what do you consider actually being independent from your parents? Is it living alone? Is it being financially separated? Is it like any of those kinds of things? And so again, in my rusty state, I was like trying to explain myself well, but not doing the most clear job. So it was definitely a good reality check for, how rough and rusty my Korean speaking skills are. Again, because I haven't been using this skill, it's kind of been atrophying slowly over time. And so I'm very glad that at least now I will be, engaging in these deep levels of conversation, because again, one of my huge goals for speaking is being able to speak more fluidly, more clearly, more succinctly about these like deeper topics of conversation, not just the basics of how I learned Korean, why I came to Korea, yada, yada, yada. I will say there is kind of a negative aspect about us matching so well and having such fluid and continuous conversation and easily finding things to discuss, and that is that both times so far we've met, we've kind of gone way beyond our agreed upon stop time. We went in with the idea of like roughly 45 minutes of chatting, and both times we've gone, I think, like an hour and a half or an hour both times, and so I definitely think we should probably start setting an alarm for the end, just because even though I do enjoy talking with her, obviously, I think it's good to have a set, firm time to end the conversation, because both of us have just finished teaching for the entire day, and both of us are introverts, and so I think our social batteries are kind of drained, and none of us wants to be the one who's like checking the clock constantly, so having some sort of alarm I think will solve that problem for us. So hopefully we can kind of have a more fixed time for ending our discussions in the future, because I do want to continue this and have it be sustainable and not get drained by it after just a couple weeks. But yeah, in the future we plan to continue to meet twice a week, like I said, and we might just discuss kind of life like we have done these first few times. We've also discussed possibly discussing like a book we're reading, or for example, I have these like Korean short snippet kind of reading textbooks that I might kind of either write a paragraph about or discuss those topics with her as well. So kind of having some sort of guided topic for discussion, not just necessarily the flow of natural conversation, but I think we're gonna kind of just go with the flow. So on English days, she can kind of be in charge of what we're discussing for that day, and on Korean days, I can be in charge of what we're discussing, or if I bring in writing for her to kind of look over and see if anything's unnatural for those days. So yeah, that is the gist of my language exchange situation so far. Again, I feel extremely fortunate that right when I was looking for some speaking opportunities, she just emailed me out of the blue asking for this language exchange situation. I actually asked her, like, why did she choose me? Because, you know, we have a lot of people in the English department, and she said I was just like, happened to be at the top of the list that she was looking at in the English department. So just by random chance, she emailed me first. So again, very grateful for this lucky coincidence that ended up happening that serves both of us very well. So yeah, that's that. Now on to the second function of this video, which again is a kind of day in the life study vlog. So once again, I keep mentioning it in like every video, but in a couple weeks, I'm going to Japan. And so currently my priority is learning Japanese. And so basically for the past like 2 weeks-ish, almost everything I've been doing for language learning has been Japanese, except for, you know, this past week and doing that language exchange for the first time. But yeah, I kind of had a rough goal to be kind of studying or immersing in Japanese for roughly 2 hours a day until I went to Japan, or at least until my friend got here in Korea. However, that has very much not been the case. Like as soon as the school year started with classes, that fell off completely. I feel like the first week of classes in particular is very cognitively draining, just because you're interacting with a bunch of new students, which just, you know, involves a lot of new social interaction and figuring out kind of the atmosphere of your class and how these students react to things and how long they take on things. So it's just a lot more mental energy as a professor to, you know, figure out the situation of the new class and how they're going to react to the assignments that you typically do. And because of that, this whole first week, I did not basically do any language learning. I think I watched one movie in Japanese, and that was literally all I did the entire week. And so yeah, even once it hit the weekend, I have a 3-day weekend. Currently I teach Monday through Thursday, and Friday through Sunday is my weekend. Even once Friday and Saturday hit, I was just so mentally drained from the week that I just wanted to have 2 days of not thinking about anything mentally draining. I just relaxed for 2 days straight. And now on Sunday, I'm finally kind of mentally relaxed enough that I feel like I can kind of jump back in to the language learning game. And hopefully this upcoming week will not be as dry language-wise as this past one was. But yeah, as far as what I want to do for today, I kind of have 3 main goals. The first 2 relate to Japanese and the third one does not. The first one is do a little bit of active stuff for Japanese. That will probably entail some yomu yomu or satorebiru or both. And the second one is to jump back into getting some exposure to listening stuff through comprehensible Japanese and through possibly another movie or show. And then finally, if I have time, I want to do just one little chapter of Do Chinese. I haven't touched it in 2 weeks now, and whenever I leave it for a long time, I tend to like forget the storyline that I'm in the middle of reading for this 3 Kingdoms story that I'm trying to get through currently. And so I do want to, you know, keep that occasionally in my study loop just so I don't totally forget everything that I've been reading so far. So that is my goal for today. To set kind of a time goal overall, my goal is at least 5 hours maybe of Japanese, and then however long that one little chapter of Do Chinese takes. My thinking is like maybe 1 hour-ish of active stuff and 4 hours of passive. That should be feasible in theory, but we shall have to see.
子供の頃、動物が好きでした。
本当には恋愛をしないと誓いました。約束が違います。うわー！よく見ておけ。
Okay, sorry. Just trying to regain my composure after whatever it is that I just finished watching. But yeah, I did manage to hit 5 hours in Japanese today. It was actually unexpected because I was kind of losing steam around 2.5 hours in and decided to just watch an episode or two of the show and then just call it a night, even though it probably wouldn't be 5 whole hours. But then the show that I ended up choosing, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it really. It was like a rom-com, but instead of like comedy, it's like really goofy, wacky silliness, like almost too cheesy goofy, but the storyline was somehow like compelling enough that I watched the entire thing in one sitting. I don't know, I'm naturally a binge watcher, so as long as something's like mildly gripping, I will tend to keep watching stuff, but that was quite a journey, I will say. First of all, the male lead of the show looks like a young, like Japanese version of Yoo Jae-suk, and like once I saw that comparison, my brain just like kept seeing Yoo Jae-suk the entire drama, which if you know who Yoo Jae-suk is, it was just an interesting thing to see him as like a young teenage nerd turning into this like stalker person in love. I don't know, like the actual romance was very stalkery and like, you know, if a girl says no, just keep trying, just keep following her around and eventually she might say yes. It was one of those kind of storyline. So the actual romance was kind of like, no thanks. But yeah, I don't know. Something about just the goofiness of it all like did manage to keep me entertained. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. It was quite the 3 hours to spend. After the first like couple of minutes of watching it, I was like, should I keep watching this? It's kind of dumb, but you know, I did keep watching it. So that was my evening. But yeah, like I said, I did, because of that, manage to hit just over 5 hours in Japanese, with the vast majority of it actually being listening stuff once again. So I'm very, very happy with that. That is what I need, honestly, right now, is just to kind of, again, flood myself with Japanese immersion before I head to Japan. But I also managed to do Chinese as well, so I am, again, very happy with that as well. But yeah, after an entire week of not really doing much of anything as far as languages go, it was nice to actually have a day relatively filled with languages once again. But it is getting late now and it is a school night, so I'm gonna go ahead and get ready for bed and end this vlog here. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, annyeong.